want me to sit in an office and dispatch heroes?
In exchange, we can make you Mecha Man again.
Firstly, we can talk a bit about Dispatch. If you give us a bit of background into it, how the project came about.
Yeah, so we started our studio in 2018, about 7 years ago, almost to the day. Our ad hoc's birthday was 2 days ago, so our anniversary just hit.
And we were busy making a game. Yeah. Yeah. Forgot about it.
Flew by. Yeah, but with the very first thing we set out to do was we wrote an early draft for Dispatch, and that was going to be for a live action version of the game where it was flesh and blood actors, and be interactive, but it was a different version of what we see to what we have today, but kind of core concept was the same. Some of the characters were the same. And then that didn't happen because the pandemic shut all of Hollywood down. So that was kind of like where it started. And then eventually, I mean, we've been doing other projects. We've, some people know about, some people don't. But eventually kind of we came back to like, okay, let's do something for ourselves. And Dispatch was the thing that got taken off the shelf.
Yeah. So how far along did that original live action project get? Like, had you casted, and was there funding? What was the deal with that?
Funding, yeah. Casting started. Yeah, it was it was one of those things where it was definitely like just hitting the giant ramp up of okay, we're about to go into full production on this thing, and that's when it was like, hold on, hit the brakes, everybody.
Yeah, we were doing the fun thing. We were doing set scouting. We were, working with casting directors, going through lists, making offers. We're kind of at that like, oh shit, it's real phase. And to be honest, like at the time, I remember being like, we're not ready. Like we're so how the hell are we gonna do this? Looking at the calendar, which I'm sure everyone kind of feels, or most people feel when they're making a movie or a TV show. But yeah, it was a whole new world to us. We were working with, production teams and stuff for people from that world. So we had guidance, but it was going to be, I mean, I think we're very grateful, to be honest, that it didn't happen, because it would have been fun to make and it would have been a new experience. And for the first thing that we ever did, it would have been like, yeah, cool. Like this, we're kind of like getting paid to learn how to make a TV show, but I don't think it would have been anywhere near as good as, we wouldn't have been as fulfilled as we are with Dispatch, the thing that we actually made.
It definitely would have been the rushed version of, just got to get something shot and released, as opposed to how do you take your time and kind of like make sure that everything is hitting how it needs to, which we got to do eventually. So that's good.
So was it kind of more like, Netflix's Bandersnatch? Was that kind of more the idea in terms of where it would have sat than like a traditional video game? Basically,
yeah, we were trying to do some. I mean, we kind of have our own sort of philosophy. Bandersnatch is an interesting example where it kind of like popped and everyone knew about it for the month. Everyone was talking about it. But for us, we were kind of playing and going like, if we were doing this, we'd do it a little bit differently. We were kind of the annoying person in the room as our families were enjoying it, playing it for Christmas. But yeah, and we were going to do some other gameplay stuff. We were trying to figure out how do we make this more interactive? How do we add more like mechanics to live action stuff? So there was going to be more there. And some of that stuff, when we started the animated version, we carried a lot of that over initially. And we're like, oh, we had all these ideas. Let's see what it'll look like here. And then as we were developing that stuff, we felt like, these are like leftovers from a different medium and different constraints. We need to kind of like tear this back down and rebuild like the kind of gameplay foundation to make it more aligned with what Robert's doing and what the player like is like the fantasy of being a dispatcher is.
Yeah, and I'd say too that also happened a little bit with the story, and that we had the full thing written in the previous version, but like Nick was saying for the gameplay, like once you pull it out of the drawer and you're going into a different medium, you almost have to look at it like it's like you don't take a book and just make the exact, adaptation of that. Like, you have to sort of change it to make it into a movie. And we sort of had that original version of it, and we're like, okay, well, let's not just change the visuals and all of a sudden now it looks like a cartoon. We have to actually sort of run it through this filter of what would be the best experience for players.
Do you feel like you had feel free to say no, but do you feel like you had a hesitancy to do that because obviously of your work with TellTale and the parallels that might be drawn then between what you're doing now and the past?
A hesitancy to do what piece specifically?
I guess to move into non-live action, kind of like animation, I guess.
No, yeah, I mean, I think our hesitance, any hesitance that we would have had or did have, was more that we just didn't want to make the same exact thing that we had made before. For we worked at TellTale for a long ass time, and we kind of knew, we were very aware of all of what made it great, but also all the things that are valid critiques of some of the games we made in the past, and so it was a core to like what our vision for Dispatch was like, also like anti statements of like, it's not going to be this, it's not going to be this, and so we figured we wanted, we knew that there was so much more to do with the genre, and or at the very least we wanted to explore some ideas and things that we've been talking about for a long time, and make some controversial decisions like pulling out exploration and stuff like that, but all in the kind of the spirit of trying to like whittle away like what actually makes these, take all the chuff away and just be like, here's what makes this good, and like, let's just make sure that these are firing on all cylinders, make sure it looks incredible, make sure it's paced more like an actual TV show, and then find gameplay that supports the story, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't I guess one of the things that was really successful about TellTale is they could make a lot of games quickly, and there was an engine that was specifically designed to do a specific thing. And so it was really great in this sort of TV sense of like, you can just do multiple seasons really quick and kind of get entire teams moving through different IP. And I think when we started kind of with Adhoc and figuring out what we wanted to do and talking about being in Unreal and opening up the possibilities, I think we put all of the assumptions from everything we'd ever worked on the table and just went through one by one. We're like, okay, here's the reasons why we did things this way before. Can we do them better now? Do we want to do them better now? Or is that a core piece of it? And then we just sort of whittled it down to something. And like Nick touched on, the visuals was a big thing where we just watched so many people over the years, like, hear about something we'd worked on and hear it was great. And then they would kind of sit down to try and play it, even though they're not necessarily like a gamer, and they would kind of get turned off by the visuals or it just felt buggy or non-premium. And so one of the things with Dispatch that we set out to do from the very beginning is, let's take all those barriers off the table and like just make something that anyone should be able to sit down and enjoy. And it's really great to see that happening all over the place now with Dispatch. Is like, I have lots of friends of all different ages who are interested in trying this and who've played the first few episodes and are really enjoying it. And it's the same people that 10 years ago I tried to get to play other things, letting them know that it was they were interested. I think they'd like it, and they bounced off. So yeah,
interesting. Because it must have been like, I mean, it's a huge decision, I guess, to have walked away from TellTale. I don't know. I wondered if you could talk a bit about your thought process with that, and like, how did you know it was the right time to? Were you getting frustrated with not having that full creative control? You kind of touched on the limits of the engine and stuff. I don't know. What was your like sort of thought process?
I got some stuff. No, I think there's kind of like I was saying earlier, it's like all the processes at TellTale were set up to do a specific kind of thing. And a lot of the first kind of like the early projects we worked on, it was really exciting. And we were trying to kind of push the limits within the framework that we could to make something new and interesting to us. And then after a while, it does feel like, as a developer, you kind of feel like you're making the same thing and really limited. Every time you have ideas that, a grand way to sort of bust out of the conventions and say, let's try this new thing, it's too much to kind of fit into the pipeline of what a studio like that is, where they're just really like honed in to do a specific thing. So I think we just kind of felt the fatigue after a while of, I imagine, honestly, developers in any category feel it. If you're just working on first person shooters for 20 years, at some point you're like, I kind of want to try something else and, and challenge myself in a new way. Like, I think part of you on a creative side can feel the fatigue, and also just kind of gets a little deadened by, not being able to challenge yourself in new ways. And so that was definitely one of, I'll say my motivations of wanting to get out and try something new, was just to be free to explore and fail. So.
No, and I mean, on top of that, like I was at TellTale for 10 years, and so I definitely felt the sort of fatigue of just doing. I mean, it's not the thing for me is like, it wasn't the fatigue of like telling interactive stories, obviously. Like it was for me, especially after Tales from the Borderlands, and feeling like it didn't kind of get the fair shot that it deserved. It felt like that proves to me that we could do something great, and it just needed kind of other ingredients to get it all the way there. Like it needed to, be prettier. It needed to not have an episodic cadence of 2 months. It needed to, have more marketing, or have, other angles to get people excited about it. And so it was, Ad Hoc was a bet on ourselves that that we had instincts that maybe would pan out. And so, scary. And then especially the whole time, like, we've been a company for 7 years. This is our first game that we've released. For 7 years, people have been telling us this was a bad idea, and it wasn't until 3 weeks ago that they said, hey, well, yeah, of course it would. Of course it worked. You know what I mean? Yeah. Look at the formula. Of course that worked. They got Aaron Paul. But that none of those things, we've had Aaron Paul for 2 years, and even still people were saying this is going to flop. So
I think,
yeah,
we were telling people too, we're like, hey, if this, it's our shot to either make something great or totally fail.
Yeah, this will be the last thing we ever make. Leave the industry.
It's on us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like we've been saying that internally and externally for years now. So there's definitely the anticipation leading up to it, where you're like, I think this is good and that people will like it, but you really have no idea.
You lose perspective, because it's like, I've been looking at this. I've been hearing these jokes for 3 years. I've been seeing this, like, this piece of animation, like, I was talking to someone on the team today. Like, we're still in the middle. We're still literally like shipping a game. Like, sadly, like we haven't been able to, or I haven't really felt the ability to, and I know Dennis hasn't either, like to like relax and just like sort of bask and let it wash over you. And I feel more like I used to, when we would ship a game at TellTale, or in the past, I would feel like the kid on Christmas and be like, oh my God, guys, we did it. Like, so super excited. And now I feel like the parent on the couch, just sort of like drinking the coffee, like, like watching other people excited. Because I think I feel more relief than excitement at this point. It's been building, the pressure's been building. Like, we've put our, we spent almost a decade, it feels like, with this in our kind of, in our bodies, and we're trying to just get it out there and let other people tell us if it's good. So that's really great. And I mean, obviously the sales and all that are awesome too. But really it's like, it's been this hypothesis for so long, and we finally have been able to test it. So
sweet. Well, so you move from it being a live action due to COVID. What was that decision like? Was that quite long-winded?
It was May 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from that, we went from basically canceling the live action version directly into working on The Wolf Among Us 2 with TellTale. We had been talking to them already, and we were kind of getting to know the people who had purchased TellTale, and so we kind of been flirting. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, well, I guess we're going back to making games, like doing what we know how to do, because you can do that remotely. And yeah, so then we worked with them for a while on developing Wolf 2, and kind of eventually it was not moving as fast as we were hoping it would move, and we were getting antsy, and we had the script done and we were ready to go, and we had to make a call of essentially, are we going to like commit our studio to like being a support studio for this project, which we were really passionate about, or is this the right time to like, we've hit major milestones, like now we can kind of like let them take it from here. As much as we'd love to sort of see it across the finish line, like we had to choose between that or Dispatch essentially, and so we chose Dispatch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a fascinating decision to make, walking away from, a very established IP, to create something brand new. Did people think you were mad, or was it like, were you just like, screw them?
Not really. I mean, and I'll say that like at the time, like I think we were kind of also, it was a little bit mutual in that we were doing them a favor, like they were paying us, and like and it wasn't moving as fast as they wanted it to either. So it was kind of this like, hey, like it's sort of like we'll make this easier for you guys in the short term, like good luck. But also like, that's not our IP. It's not, again, we were supporting TellTale, we're doing it in partnership with, but they're the lead horse. They're the ones, having to sort of raise money and do all that stuff, publish it. So so doing Dispatch and doing something original, that was kind of a double down moment for us. And it's like, hey, I mean, and it also like working on Wolf was a reminder. Like, I hadn't done anything since Borderlands, and that was like 6 years prior to writing and working on Wolf 2 with our team. And when we did that, we were like really happy with the script. We were really happy with the story we were telling. Dennis and I were doing mocap shoots, and we were like testing things out, and like, getting back into the swing of neon noir and doing all this cool shit that we had done on the first game. And we were like, oh yeah, we know what we're doing. Like, we like doing this. We like working together. When we work together, we make cool shit. And so it was kind of like let's just go do that for ourselves.
Yeah, Wolf 2 was like the gateway back into
as a reminder, because we had been working at Ubisoft together, but it was a very specific type of thing, and it wasn't moving in the same sort of way that we would have taken it if we were doing it ourselves. So it was just like we kind of got reinvigorated working on Wolf, and then got antsy. We're like, come on, let's go, let's make Wolf. And it was like molasses, so yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's the it's like going from TellTale, where we were just constantly shipping episodes back to back of different IP all the time. Like there's never a down moment. Like you never got to just take a month of slow time. Like it's just out of one fire into the next for, like Nick was saying, almost a decade. And then going to Ubisoft, which is a much bigger company, obviously in a way different position financially. And I think even the first 3 months we were there, we were just like confused. We're like, I feel like shouldn't we be an engine right now? Like, is there a deadline? Like, what's going on here? And what's weird is, like, as from a creative standpoint, it sounds amazing. Where it's like, oh yeah, no, just sit in a room and just talk for a while, just kind of like think things through. We were used to that. And then the entire process, when you look at it and you're just going, oh my God, this is also going to be years and years.
Maybe like 6 years of our life. One game here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then going back to something like Wolf Among Us 2, it reminded us of kind of what it felt like to be like just in the trenches, getting stuff done. And then I think we also there's probably a little bit of a reminder of what it felt to work like for TellTale, like Nick was saying. It's like, it wasn't our, we weren't owning it. So there's just a lot of decisions that are made for you, or, kind of like you have to live with, where we kept going like, I wish you know what would be great is if we could do this, this, and this. And that's when we kind of started talking about dispatch again. It was like, well, we could just do that. And then we could make all those choices. And
and if it sucks, it's our fault.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So
what came first? Was it the concept of dispatch, and then you thought, oh no, we can't do this here, we need to make our own studio? Or was it, the studio idea and then dispatch came?
It was studio first, but it was, I mean, we basically got lucky. Most companies, when they're formed, it's super, super indie, and it's like people in a garage and they've been saving up, and they're like, we got 9 months to try to figure something out. Or it's the other side where it's like, you're getting big investors or VCs, or like, because it's a lot of work to start, depending on your ambition. And we were very fortunate in that essentially we started our studio with a contract. So someone was like, hey, we want you guys to write a thing, direct a thing, and make this like live action piece. And so we immediately got to get paid. It was only 4 of us, two writers, 2 directors, but it allowed us to kind of like get going, and then at that point, when you're like moving to the next project, you're established and you've got something under your belt. And so that we were really fortunate that that's how the company started, because most of the time it's like someone just shows up and says, here's $1 million, and now I own half your company. Like that's kind of a shitty place to start, but we didn't have to do that.
Nice. So you got Aaron Paul 2 years ago. Another thing that's obviously had a lot of attention is the collaboration with Critical Role. I wondered if you could talk about at what point they got involved, and like, I guess, like, what is their involvement? Of course, you've got loads of voice actors, but yeah, how does that relationship work?
Dennis,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, I can. I mean, I'm the Critical Role guy.
Go between.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I'm trying to think of where to start. So Aaron Paul, I'll start with him. Aaron was, we knew early on, we wanted to have some like talent that people would like, you'd say the name and then they'd know. And that is, there are, the very sort of like dry, pessimistic version of that is, when we're raising money or when we're trying to convince people to do, we're like, hey, we've got this person that you heard, Mr. Microsoft, you've seen this guy, his name, like, answer our phone call, please. So that's a thing that is like the kind of shit you have to think about when you're running a studio, not the kind of shit you think about when you're just a creative. But Aaron we thought there's no way in hell we're going to get Aaron Paul. Like that was not that sort of like caliber we were thinking or we would pull, but both him and Jeffrey, and I want to say Jeffrey came first. And we were very fortunate in an unfortunate time where I think it was the actors strike. A lot of people were opening up what, like, okay, well, I can't step onto a set, but, maybe I'll expand. So we actually got a lot of auditions from actors you wouldn't expect. And Jeffrey showed interest in the project, and so we talked with him, and he read the scripts and he got excited. And then because that happened, our casting director was like, oh shit, I think people are really responding to this. And then so she reached out to Aaron, and we were like, there's no way he's gonna respond. Like, he's not, the hell, he doesn't do random stuff. And he read the script. He saw her. We did a R&D test with like a vertical slice. He saw that, and it really moved him. And yeah, so we spoke with him, and he was just, he hadn't done animation since BoJack Horseman. Hilariously, like, Invincible snatched him up before, like, we started with him, and then like they like in the middle got a thing out before we could. So it looks like we're second. Okay.
Did they know he was doing a superhero thing?
Yeah, and I'm pretty fucking sure that our casting director, she cast for Invincible. So like she cast him on our thing first and went, oh man, he's crushing it, and then put him on. It's like, come on, Linda, what are you feeling? But I remember him taking that phone call in the booth. We were watching her pitch him on Invincible, and I was just like, what the fuck is yeah, so Aaron's been incredible, and he's been a huge advocate for us, and has helped us a lot. So we're very grateful. But Critical Role stuff, that came about in a way. Well, basically, we've known a bunch of those folks for a while. Laura, I worked with her a lot on Tales from the Borderlands, and I kind of got to know Travis a little bit through that, just because they're married. And yeah, and so when we were casting for Dispatch, we knew we wanted Laura, and so we were kind of pitching her similar to how we were pitching everybody else, and she was looking at the animatic and the vertical slice stuff we had done, and I guess Travis, she was like, "Holy shit, look at this," and she was showing Travis, and at the time they were trying to figure out what games, what they could do in the game space at Critical Role. And they were meeting people, and they weren't quite kind of like connecting with a lot of the sort of ideas. Like, as you imagine, that like people are coming to them with like, let's make a $500 million game and it's set in your world. And this weird little small narrative thing sort of got Travis's attention. And so we met with them, and we had dinner with Laura and Travis, and we talked about what that could look like. And we were focused on Critical Role at the time. We were thinking about, okay, our next thing can be Critical Role. And basically what happened is the industry fucking collapsed, and a bunch of studios started laying people off, and people were freaking out about money. And we had someone who was invested in our project basically pull out, and we were left going, oh shit, now we're one of these studios who's trying to make ends meet. And so we were trying to figure that out for like a year, like trying to figure out who was going to be able to help us. And at a certain point, we just started we were like, wait, what are we doing? Like, Crit Role, just like, you're already like all in the game. Like, just come help us make this, if you believe in what we will do together, like, let's just focus on the thing that's right in front of us. So, yeah. So basically they came in, and they were kind of, our guardian angel, and showed up when we were in need, and supported us. And yeah, so yeah, it's, they were one of the very few people who understood what we were doing and saw that there would probably be an audience here. Most people look at this and they would compare us to, this other narrative games that didn't sell well, and they didn't appreciate that maybe the quality of the writing or the quality of the art or whatever was actually important. And they just kind of like look at it in like an Excel spreadsheet. So anyways, that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of what happened with Crit Role. Yeah,
it's definitely a thing where all along the way, until you make something, and fortunately this is our first release, and we got to actually release something, so that's already a win. We were just talking the other day, it's been 9 years since I've released a game, so that was
after releasing games like every 3 months for
exactly. So it feels weird. Forgot where I was going with that, but I'm sure it was important.
It was really good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. I think so. You got Laura Bailey, and then you got Critical Role on board. So is there going to be a kind of, are they invested in the ad hoc? So is that like an ongoing collaboration rather than like a just Dispatch?
Yeah, I think they're invested in ad hoc in that they're invested in the game we just made and then the game we're going to make. So yeah. That's pretty invested. But yeah, I think we look at them as long-term partners. They are very much the type of studio or the type of company that we would like to be. So I think we just value the same things. They're creators first, and then they made a business around that. And similarly, that's kind of, our studio was founded by two writers, 2 directors, which is the reason why people didn't trust us to to make something good, because they didn't see a single producer on that list. But yeah, so I think I just look at them like, if if when we grow up we're just like them, like that would be pretty cool. So we're learning a lot from that team and kind of how they got to where they got to.
Yeah, it is nice that there's having gone through different relationships and partnerships and all sorts of stuff over the years, kind of landing in a place where there's a mutual respect and we enjoy working together and both feel like each other can kind of contribute to the success of something. There's a lot that we can learn from them. We're really excited. I think it's really nice. We're lucky in the narrative game space in that it is somewhat of a smaller sphere. So it's kind of like, growing up, it's like, if you're a skater and you find someone else who skates, like you both become friends. And I think we have that we both really value character performance and strong narrative. And so it just kind of helps those conversations flow.
I think you're both a really good antidote to the like sort of massive studio kind of culture we have in the creative industries generally. I think, you can say that for like journalism as well. The kind of like creator economy as a sort of quite powerful force is quite cool to see. But speaking of like creators, you got 2 streamers on board. How did that come about with Moist Critical and Jack?
Well, so Jack, I think Jack was on the list of people that when we would release a game at TellTale, we would pull up his streams and watch him play our stuff. He's kind of always been a big fan of the work that we've done and the genre and yeah, so we genuinely like the guy. Like he's a good dude. And then you kind of add in the fact that he's got a very specific sound, he's got a specific personality. And yeah, we were talking, and with Charlie, it's like, Pierre, who our narrative director, spent like a pandemic just watching Charlie. Like, and when Pierre talks about it, it's like he kind of didn't understand, and we all kind of like, honestly, all of us didn't really understand like what the appeal of like streamers was. We're a little bit older, we didn't sort of grow up with it in a way, but in the pandemic we all found out. Because it's like, oh man, I'm just craving connection. I'm craving like, I want to just feel like I'm like hanging out with a buddy who's playing a game, and you kind of have that sort of, hopefully a healthy version of the parasocial relationship. But what's great about this is we have effectively we're able to like audition them. They have hours and hours, hundreds of hours of content where we're able to see like, this is what Charlie's like when he's mad, this is what Charlie's like when he's cracking jokes, and we can kind of pre-vet some of that stuff. And like we would take clips of them and like put it over concept art and go like, is this working? Like, it's close, like let's see if he'll do, like maybe he'll come in and do an audition. And so we reached out to them and we essentially did like paid auditions or paid callbacks essentially, where we tried them out for their characters. And Charlie actually read for both Sonar and Golem. And then once we kind of had some clay on the table, we were able to work with that. We were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. People are going to love this.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about that part of the process too, because one of the things that we do with every character, Aaron Paul included, is if there's someone who's worked before, taking voice clips, putting it over the art, and just listening to back, like you'll have 10 different actors, and it might be a comedian, a streamer with an interesting personality and voice, some celebrity actor from film and TV, and then someone from games, someone's friend who wants to get into acting. Like you can just put them all together and listen to it back to back. And I think it's less that we go like, here's a name, or here's how many followers they have, let's slot them in. And it's more of just like, what are interesting voices that match this art and personalities that kind of contrast it. And there's definitely folks along the way who also could have been interesting in these different roles that we put up there. We thought like, oh, you know what, we might be able to get them and this would be amazing. And you put that voice over the visual and you watch it and you go, just something's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't click. And
It
so,
doesn't, yeah, they could be so on board and so excited, but then you're like, I think we have to say no.
you know, Daniel Day-Lewis over punch-ups.
I'm sorry,
already,
dude.
like,
Sorry.
it doesn't
Yeah.
work. I wish. But no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my next question. Like, how much of the characters were, I guess, like, shaped? Because I was going to ask, like, did you create these characters for them? But I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
no. But
No, yeah. but we did take advantage of them as we were continuing the story. Like, we probably cast, I think we probably wrote the first half of the season, like, where that was like pretty solid while we were casting, and then as we got into the later half, we were kind of massaging it and seeing like what the actors are good at, and what part of the personality is really clicking, and we would kind of double down on that stuff. And yeah, and so they definitely influenced the characters as we were developing things and creating the story.
It's one of the benefits of a production process like this, where it's animation, it takes a long time, is that you get the chance to iterate, to live with things, as opposed to, say, sometimes shooting a feature film. It's like you get everyone together, the actor might show up the day that filming starts because they've been on something else, and you figure it out, you've got 2 months, and then
you're gonna have, yeah,
and that's what it is. Yeah, but we're fortunate in this process, and I think in games a lot of times it happens, sadly, the same way, where the game is made first and then they bring in folks at the end just to kind of dub over some voices and get it out the door. And because our games are so narrative heavy, that is such a crucial factor. We're prevising and storyboarding and scratch voice recording years in advance to try and just get the rhythm of a scene and the script, and bringing the actors in and having them experiment. And I feel like I was seeing Charlie talking on his stream about just burping, and then that ending up in the game in the scene. It's like they just kind of do their thing, and it's fun too. Some of them are really great at improvising, and so you get sections of the script where it's like, hey, here's a bunch of background stuff happening, just let's try some things. And then watching them kind of in character explore that is really fun. Some are really good at it.
So some of the like dispatch, gameplay, that's just ad-libbed.
Some of it is.
Some of it is.
Yeah, yeah. There's like other. Yeah, I think the stuff that Dennis was mentioning is like, oh, you're in a party,
yeah,
and just we need some background while
just like, tell some stories, talk about things, and in your character's voice.
All that stuff's basically ad-libbed, but I mean, like, and I think that for me, the character who I think it's just people are just starting to appreciate, but the one person I love working with almost the most, the sessions I look forward to the most were for Flambe, who's played by Lance Kanstopoulos. He's a comedian, and he's just like, we wrote lines that were funny, and he would take those lines and make them funnier every time. And he's so quick, he's so fast at ad-libbing, and so much of especially his shift dialogue is just him riffing. Like, we'll have like a sentence, and then he'll say 3 more sentences after that, and we like couldn't cut it because it was too funny. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I was really struck by I guess Sonar, because I'll tell you, I fired Sonar mostly, honestly, because I kind of was curious about the voice acting, like, but I was really blown away. Like, I thought the performance was incredible for, I guess, for a streamer and a non-actor. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, no, you're not an actor until all of a sudden you are. So I think I think both Charlie and Moist, Charlie and Jack, who was not Jack. That still,
I know.
Sean and Charlie. They, I mean, in working with them, they got better and better too. Like, they kind of like warmed up, and we were getting messages from folks like later, like right before the game shipped, like, hey, like, can I come back and just record some of that early stuff again? Because I feel like I know my character now, and I feel like and you're just like, no, you're fine, you're great, you're just insecure. Every actor feels this way. Like, don't worry, we think it's awesome.
Amazing. Right, so we haven't got too long left, so I'll skip forward in time to release. That's quite a big step forward, but
we made the game somewhere in the middle there, and yeah,
sort of happened. I think obviously it's been a huge success so far. I mean, over 1 million sales. I'm not sure what it is now, but obviously you reached that landmark. That's huge. And there's a lot of chatter online about it being a last minute contender for Game of the Year. I wondered if you'd heard that and kind of what your reactions were.
Yeah, that's sweet. We know what year we released our game in.
Yeah.
We didn't need a GTA to be scared. There are so many incredible games this year. And I've had very little time to play them, but I've probably touched them all a little bit. And we're not expecting we're not expecting wins. If we get nominated, we're fucking doing backflips. Like, that would be rad in any category. If we're getting nominated, we're treating that as a win this year. Like, there's just, incredible indies in, Claire Obscura. It's their debut game. Like, we're not winning anything. Well, we'll be stoked if people nominate us. So, but I mean, this sentiment is incredible. The support from fans, like, that's really what we are actually doing this for. So,
yeah, and we get it's working on a thing for so long in a vacuum, you kind of you lose perspective as well, and also I'll say not releasing a game in so long, you kind of forget that feeling of what it's like to put something out in the world. And it's been really nice seeing either folks emailing us or on our Discord, when you get a message from someone that's just like, hey, I was having a rough week and I kind of randomly came across your game and it made me feel so much better. Like, that's the coolest thing. Like, you just imagine there's just people out there who are finding this, because we're not a big studio. There wasn't a huge, paid marketing push on every possible platform. And so you're getting people who kind of didn't even know the game existed until either they saw some streamer playing it or they saw an article online and then just watched the trailer and went, oh, wow, maybe I could use something funny right now. Let me just check this game out. And so when they are entertained, it feels great.
Amazing. Do you think you've let yourself feel relief? Or are you also on the sofa?
Not yet. No, we're like Nick was saying before, we're until the finale is released, it's just all consuming. And especially as we're running a studio now, so all the things where in the past you might as just say an individual developer, it's like, I finished my piece, all right, good luck everyone, I'm gonna get some rest, and then when it's released I'm gonna watch some streams all day and just enjoy people playing the game. And we're dealing with all of the weird random stuff that no one thinks about releasing games, and there's just
we're still published, so we don't even have support there. We're learning how to do that ourselves and making all the mistakes that you make. And but it's once it's all out next week, I think we'll be able to kind of appreciate it a little bit more. I think at least Dennis and I, the team is kind of full on, I mean, they're but the thing is, they're crunching too. We're working. We don't want to screw up the end here. We're so close. We gotta stick the landing. And I think that's been kind of the other side of the success. And we're selling a bunch of copies and people are excited. It's I sort of felt man, they're a little too excited. The hype is a little bit too bigger than we thought it would be. And I would almost have preferred it to people be this stoked at the end. But in the middle of it, it's making every decision that, final decision we're making now feel even more like the consequences are real. So,
yeah.
And you're still tweaking.
Well, so there's lots of, it's interesting because we care so much about the smallest details. There's a lot of stuff we're doing that technically you don't need to do, but to us, it's everyone's watching. We have this opportunity to make this small piece, 1% better. And like, that's going to make all the difference. And so you get down into these details that like, it's nice to see folks playing the game and then talking about how they appreciate all the little details of the game, because we really do spend a lot of time on this stuff. So it's not like, we're going,
let's reanimate all this.
Yeah,
what if
yeah.
the story goes that way? Yeah.
But yeah,
most people on Reddit don't like the ending, so
And there's lots of little things too. Like, we scrutinize over the display text, which is, when the choices come up on screen, like the language of what each of those text fields says. You can change one word and it can change the sentiment of a choice. And so we're always, folks are playtesting, we're looking at it, you think something's done, and then a couple days before you're supposed to lock it down, you have an idea and go, you know what? It shouldn't be phrased like that. We should change that word.
We're watching how people are playing now, and we're going, oh, they're really resonating with this, and they're not resonating with that. That wasn't intended, or that wasn't what we expected. How can we kind of like shift or course correct, or like make sure that it's not like everyone's just picking this literally because of the word that's on screen. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're doing now.
Yeah.
It's almost too much data.
Yeah. Really.
I mean, I'm thinking of a particular choice that actually I was quite surprised about, was the choice between Invisigal and Blonde Blazer is so sided towards Invisigal. I wondered, did you think that would happen?
No, and it's kind of one of the big, like, I feel we never look at it for big choices like that. We never want it to be a blowout, because I mean we're glad people are passionate about no, it's you gotta do this. Like that's a good thing to have, but you also need a lot of people feeling that about the other choice. And there are things that basically, when we've been testing this game, we've been, different iterations, early versions, we never saw any group feel the way they do. I think what's happening, or at least what one of the hypothesis is, that the meta of these weekly releases and the discussion that's happening in between was not something we tested. And I think what we're seeing is the theories, the one person says like, whatever. End of it. I don't want to spoil it, but like end of episode 2, there's like a thing you learn about a character, right? There's like a moment of like, oh shit, I didn't know that. That moment has like burned so many people on that character in a way that we literally didn't even conceive of as being a possibility. Because when we were showing it to people, no one freaked out in the way that people are freaking out now. I think though that's because they can hype each other up and like explain it like, no, you fuck that person because and then it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, screw that person. And it kind of like breeds and like spreads. So I'm curious kind of beyond when people are like, kind of when the streaming stuff has died down and people are just buying the game on Christmas and they're playing at home, they can play back to back and they don't have to wait and they don't have to like, they're not hearing other people's influences. Like, I'm curious how the numbers are going to shift, or maybe we just, screwed up. but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like once it's out there, it's kind of out of our control, and it's in players' hands, and it's part of what makes this special.
Watching all the theory crafting going on between episodes is very interesting as well. I think this, because of the nature of the story having some kind of elements of mystery to it, or things that you don't really know that you're wanting to learn more about, watching people sort of go back and dissect random frames of animation from something that sometimes there's some merit to it, and other times there's just a random thing they're leaning into, and then
you're like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's not what's happening, but yeah, that's interesting.
It's pretty fun.
So you're quite engaged with the community then, in terms of I don't know if you're like trawling through Reddit or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
we're everywhere.
I mean, we're having to moderate a lot of this stuff. I mean, in our own channels, on our own Reddit, and on our own Discord. Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, yeah, we've had people show up who who were supposed to like help us moderate, and they look at our Discord and then they just turn around and they leave because it's so active. It's so like there are servers with like 5x the amount of users with like not even half the amount of activity. So people are so like rapidly discussing this stuff and like theory crafting and and just celebrating things. And so that's been a whole piece of this that we hadn't real fully like kind of appreciated. And so we're learning about that. But it's crazy. Yeah, it's people are just really invested in these characters. That's really what it comes down to. Like the when people think about like, whatever interactive narrative, everyone we talk to talks about story. How many endings? What's the story? And we have consistently been like, that's not really as important to us, which sounds crazy. But the thing that's important to us is character. Are the people that you spend time with, like, do you want to be around these characters? Is so core to a great story, but it is so often overlooked because people are excited about plots and plot twists and epic adventures and like we're just like, what about just being in a cubicle with these people? And like, how do we make that engaging? How do we make that compelling? And it's possible because shows like The Office exist. So yeah, it's just we're kind of like looking in a different direction than most people, and yeah, we'll see if we stick the landing. Like I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, it's amazing so far. So I wouldn't worry too much. Are you thinking at all about? I've seen a lot of discussion about the actual dispatch game within the game, and potentially one day launching a kind of like, a game that is just that, or like a game mode where you can kind of like cycle through days. Was that something you were thinking about? And is it a possibility for the future? Were you surprised that people want that? I don't know.
I mean, I'll say it's definitely something during development we were talking about as well, right? Like the thing that's fun about the collaborative process on a game like this is there's a lot of internal folks who are really passionate about all different aspects, and they go off and make a bunch of stuff. There's just a lot of stuff that's been made for this that's really cool, that's not ending up in this game, and that maybe could be a future thing. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential out there that we're excited by.
Yeah, we had to make the call at a certain point. We hit a fork in the road, and we knew it's either a game. The gameplay is either going to be more procedural, where let's say you're cycling out heroes, or you have a roster that grows and shrinks in like a more like dynamic way, and they're every time you play, the scenarios are different, and there's all these other systems at play. Or we make something that is bespoke and crafted and allows us to focus on the characters and have some predictability and cadence like you would in a normal story. And so because of where our priorities are, we chose the latter. But we always talked about like, oh, it would be cool to have like an infinite dispatch mode. Now that people want it, maybe it's something we can look into. I mean, we're still trying to finish this version of the game, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm shocked that people are enjoying it as much as they are. We've been playing it for so long. I'm just like, I'm sick of it, but everyone's enjoying it. Great. We'll give them more content. Is kind of how I feel if we can.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's weird. It's the thing that I didn't expect from watching streams of folks playing episodes as they're released, is how invested people get in that side. Because I think from a developer standpoint, usually you're looking for bugs, you're trying to fix issues, and so scenarios pop up and you're just like, I know who I assign to each of these. Like you kind of get set in a way, where you're like, I'm trying to get halfway through the shift to test this thing, so here's just kind of how I motion through it. And then watching people like funny enough watching Charlie play, like he's like really getting like deep about it and like talking through all the different combinations that could possibly be, and then making the best choice that you could possibly make. And it's a fun reminder that you just experience things totally differently when you're a player, obviously, than a developer. And so it's, yeah, it in the same way that Nick's talking about, it surprised me how much folks got into it. And then it's also kind of revealing when you're like, oh, I guess there is that depth there if you want it, which kind of goes back to one of our initial takes on this whole project was, if you're there for the story, you can enjoy the gameplay and not have to go too deep on it. It's not like you're just going to be failing over and over again. But if you want the depth, it's there for you to dive into. And I think that's probably the most rewarding thing, I think, from the gameplay side that we're seeing is that worked. Because that was a big bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've just created like a really, really cool sort of gameplay loop. In terms of like, I mean, I know I'm kicking myself when I mess up. I get one failure, I'm like,
we start.
Yeah, basically. What are you kind of hoping people, I guess, take away from the finale, the overall package? Was there kind of like an intention?
I think it's probably hard to talk about before it's out. I mean, we hope they like it, but
yeah.
I don't know, Dennis, if you've got anything.
I mean, I think at this point, folks are so excited about the season that we just hope that the finale lives up to expectations. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff there. And one of the things that's been nice is seeing how each different release kind of has its own tone to it, I guess. Like where, you see people get really excited about one thing, and then we're going, oh man, episodes 5 and 6 are coming out next week. Like, hope there's less of that and more of this other thing. And then it comes out, and they're like, now we're excited about this, and you're like, okay, cool. Well, now it's going to go in a little bit of a different direction for this piece. Yeah. So every week we're sort of crossing our fingers, waiting.
Yeah, that's an interesting like observation, is that that every chunk has almost its own like narrative or arc or meta like discussion about like what was great about it, and we could have maybe made it a whole season about one of these things, but we're kind of have multiple threads, multiple sort of tones and stories we're trying to tell. So it's definitely the pressure. I mean, the way 4 ends and the way people are talking about 4 and what their expectations are kind of had us nervous, because in their minds, they're not seeing the whole thing, that now it's just only this now forever, right? And they're like, that's what the game's all been about. And there's more of that. But it's just it's the weight, the anticipation just breeds all this, these expectations. And we're always just trying to make sure, we're just hopeful that we made good decisions 2 years ago, and that when they finally get to it, they'll like it. So
yeah. If you look at it on like the whiteboard overview, it's like we're trying to take you here, then we're going here, then here, then here. And so we're seeing like we look at the journey, and so along the way, there's all the points where people could say like, wait, I didn't want to go that way. So far, I feel like everyone's been riding the wave, and then once we get to the end, the hope is that you can step back and kind of look at the whole thing and go, that's right. Like that's how this thing should have played out. So
you just kind of psychologically tortured yourself for a few weeks.
Yep. Yeah.
So are there plans for another season? Was that kind of something you wanted to do? Are you kind of going to put Dispatch to one side for a bit, or permanently, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly was something we talked about early on, of like, if this was successful to a certain degree, what would we do? And I mean, it's when you've created a new IP, it's like it's hard to do that. So that in some ways you're like, okay, now that we've done the like insane heavy lift of like figuring out the world and the characters and what makes this unique, you feel a little bit like we might as well keep going. But at the same time, we also have a lot of, other ideas and stories that we want to tell. And so it's something that we obviously can't ignore now, based on just the reception so far. And so it's in the conversation. I mean, again, like we haven't, like we had to like schedule time in the future where we're going to sit down and talk about what's next, because things have just been so crazy and we haven't had a chance to even really kind of talk about it ourselves. So that'll be future conversation in the year or later this year. But clearly people, are seem to be excited about it. So.
Well, and also say, I think everything that, for the most part, most things we've worked on have had season 2 ideas while you're making season 1. So it's like, so much of the process is just throwing things on a board and kind of seeing what sticks. And then oftentimes you have a really great idea that everyone's super excited about. And then when you kind of get the shape of the entire season, that piece doesn't fit in anymore. And then that goes on a mental list of like, this would be like a really cool season 2 thing to explore. So there's, we definitely have that sort of stuff for sure that, I'm sure we'd be excited to get to think more about.